Hey, Reef Builders. What the hell was that?
It was the change from like, all right. Hey,
Hey!
I'm leaving this in, by the way. Hey, Reef Builders. Welcome to episode 81 of the Reef Therapy Podcast. My name is Framus.
Did you ever watch news radio back in the day? Or
No.
am I showing my age with that one?
Little
Phil
age at that one, I
Hartman,
think,
they
yeah.
wouldn't let him
Phil
smoke.
Hartman was classic.
They wouldn't let him smoke, and like he was a radio news guy, and they wouldn't let him smoke in the studio anymore. And he just talking like this. And every time like somebody ran in there with a cigarette and he took a drag, he was like, "Hey!"
All right. Welcome to episode number 81 of the Reef Therapy Podcast. My name is Remy. I'm joined by the owner of Reef Builders, Mr. Raj, and Mr. Mark Vanderwall. Excited to have Mark back on the show today. Mark.
Hey.
Today I want to talk about some maintenance routines, if we've got time, our coral Nemesis, and Mark's got a little update. But let's get some general reef talk out of the way first. Mark, how you been? How's the tank? How are things?
Tanks are good. I've been good, busy. Trying to think if anything noteworthy happened with my reef aquariums as of late. I mean, everything's gelling. Everything's looking great. My Neptune told me my pH had dropped to 7.6. I was like, oh, I should look at that. And then I was like, that can't be right. Let me calibrate the probe. So I pulled the probe out, and it was completely encased in a sponge that had been growing on it. I'm like, huh. So I removed the sponge, and 5 seconds later, it's like, oh, your pH is 8.2 or 8.19. Or I was like, oh, okay, cool. So I had the calibration fluid ready, and it was
Nice.
like, oh, I tore them open, had them ready to go. I was like, oh, I didn't need any of this.
You wasted the packs.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess I could have calibrated it still, but I was like too lazy to commit to that. So,
Goes right along with our maintenance talk today.
yeah, there you go. I should have maintained that better.
Did you start any of those projects that we talked about previous, the Fido refrigerator?
No, I have
That
the
was the other one.
fridge, and there's a bottle of Fido Feast in it, but I just pull it out and squirt it and put it back in the little fridge.
Still effective.
It actually works. Yeah, I was like, why am I going to hook up a dosing pump and everything to this thing? I'm like, this is actually pretty easy. It is nice having a little mini fridge right next to your tank like that. One of these little, I guess people use them for makeup or something. Because I have, some coral vendors ship corals in pea cups, the specimen containers.
Yeah.
So I have a few of those laying around, and I'll thaw out some frozen food, and I'll keep it in the fridge where it's still thawed, but it's, it keeps it from going bad for several days. So then I can feed a bunch of frozen for several days. So I've been doing that because I never feed frozen because I was lazy, and this got me out of my lazy funk with feeding that. So
I found a few thousand of those pea cups in my garage.
I mean, if your friend came over and saw that, I'd be like, what's going on? You okay, man?
Got a urine laundering business over here. We'll make your dirty urine clean again. Here's your cup.
Yeah.
Go for it.
I'll take your drug test for you.
Yeah. Anything else noteworthy in your tank life there, Mark? Just cruising
No, I mean,
right
they're
along.
it's been cruise control with everything. I have moved one trachea and my endophilia upstairs since I don't have any chompy angelfish anymore. And they're doing good. And so now I'm the problem with that is like, wait, I can keep all these corals I have in the basement upstairs, but then that requires a full redo basically of where you have all your corals and your aquascapes. So that I was like, I don't want to go there yet. It's rummaging in the brain that I would like to do that one day and move everything upstairs and just go without an angelfish for a while. But it's that little idea that then you realize is like, oh, this is going to be a freaking nightmare, because what do I do with all these other corals, and how do I redo the rock, and especially with flower pots, because I've got a lot of gonies down here and they're getting big, And it's like, how do you suddenly in a mature reef tank find room for like 5 volleyballs, right? Like they're little afros, right? Like it's like, oh, where the hell do I put these things? So I've held
don't.
off on that. Yeah, well, that's true.
That's why I could never do, like, I really struggled with the smaller tanks, and that I had a cube tank in my home office that it just drove me bonkers because I couldn't fit all the stuff that I wanted in there. And this was back when frags were actual like colonies, they were real
Yeah.
frags. And so even just putting frags in there, the tank was full day one. And that was aggravating. I guess you can do it now with frags being like that big.
Yeah, but I mean,
Isn't that the thing?
it gives, I guess it doesn't give other people, anxiety is a strong word. It doesn't give me anxiety, but like I look at some of even in my tank, I look at like a hammer coral and I'm like, that thing's going to get huge, and then I look at this little frag here. I'm like, that's going to, and then you're like, how is it all going to fit? And I liked what you guys talked about last episode with Top Shelf. Then you start to. He was saying something about like, then you keep the ones you love, right? You edit out the ones you are like, oh, man, that one's not so great, and you end up with less but larger corals. But yeah, you realize how small a 6-foot tank really is. A 6x2, it's not big when it comes to growing coral.
It's awesome. It's great news for me with a 5.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have a saw? You could frag them up.
I was thinking about that. Yeah, one of those. What do you call the band saws that they
Griffin?
have? Griffin. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that was great when I had your dimension tank. I made it 80% softies, and softies are easy because one, they don't really screw each other up too much if they're touching. Some do. But you just go in there on a Saturday with scissors and you're just like snap, 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 or snip, I guess is the right word, but you just cut everything up, mow it down, and then just let it regrow. But with LPS, that's harder. And you can do that with SPS, but it's more of a pain in the ass because you're always like trying to break that one branch and then you break the wrong branch or the whole thing breaks or the whole thing comes off the rock and you're cussing. And so, but yeah, that's one nice thing about softy tanks is you can just mow everything down, throw it in the trash, and then like it just regrows. So
Yeah, I was thinking you could take the middle out of the ganies, like then, and so you still keep that kind of round shape to it.
yeah,
And then just frag up the rest of it. And I was gonna say sell it, but for you just toss it in the backyard or whatever.
play soccer with it. Yeah.
Play soccer with it, yeah. But yeah, and then there's that also. There's all. I don't know if you guys get this, but I get this kind of like, I don't want to cut it. I've had this for like 7 years, 8 years. This coral's been with me forever. I don't want to start slicing it up right now. I saw somebody, Inappropriate Reefer Moki, had fragged up some of the willow sarcophyton that has kind of made its rounds from my frag here in my tanks. And I feel like I should probably be fragging this thing up and dispersing it amongst, friends and things. And I want to let them grow.
Yeah, that's how I am. I'm not good at and that's where I end up with stuff in the yard, and because it's just eventually you end up with just a few really big colonies. And I have that Pavona cactus coral that's really big, and it takes up a fifth of the tank technically. And it's like I could hack it back, but it took so long to grow that big, right?
Yeah.
That you just want to just let it keep going. But yeah, it's a luxurious problem to have, right? If your corals are thriving and they're growing, and you're dealing with that, that's a good thing.
Yeah, because it's not like they take off on day one, right? You get that period where nothing is happening and you're like, oh man, this thing's never going to grow. And it takes forever to kind of catch its groove and then start really growing.
Yeah.
So once you get to that stage, now you want to see it grow, see what it does, and get it there to where you had initially thought it would be, or I don't know.
Yeah, you don't want to go back to square one where you're waiting and waiting.
Yeah. Right. Like what if you frag it and now it starts that process over where it's just going to sit there
Yeah.
for another year before it starts to grow again.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
Do any fish make that Pavona their home?
So you just got a bunch of rock from Carib Sea. They have one that's like a little cave.
Yeah.
It's like a half dome thing, and I just popped it on top of that. And there's a large sand sifting goby that lives in that cave. No shrimp, just him, living in there. So, but in terms, yeah, actually, I always call them azure damsels. I think they have another name as well.
Yeah.
That guy always pokes in there, and like they do on a real reef, right? He
Yeah.
sleeps in there. So
That's cool. I saw the first time. I know there's a ton of different damsel varieties out there, but so we got this random tiny little reptile freshwater shop in our town here, and we utilize it for crickets for our leopard gecko upstairs. But he's just putting in some saltwater tanks now, and he got in an orange. It's called an orange tail damsel, and it almost has a lot of and I know they're in the same family as clownfish, but like it's almost got kind of the same kind of fin patterns as clownfish, but it's blue and it has like half orange tail. It's really cool. I just never seen it before. I feel like I've seen most of the damsel varieties, and that was just one that I haven't ever seen before, and I thought that was interesting. Probably still a jerk. Probably would be my guess.
yeah, I think that one's in. Is it the Pomas centris, or I don't know what the genus is.
Yeah, it's a blue one, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Blue
it's
one with
it's
orange
blue,
tail?
but its tail is orange. Like, but it's not yellow. It's orange.
but it's like a blue devil, but with an orange tail, right?
I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah, I think they're still jerks. Now I'm googling it.
They're just more expensive jerks, I think. $30-ish for this guy.
There was one with, if I'm thinking of it,
Yeah, that's it.
if I'm thinking the right one, does it have an orange belly or is the whole body blue?
Yeah, it has a little bit of an orange belly. It's
Okay. Yeah.
Chrysoptera.
Oh, it's a Cryptoptera. Interesting.
Cryptoptera cyanea. So, yeah, I don't know. I saw it and I was like, oh, I've never seen that before. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
But
I don't think I've kept those.
Yeah, I guess they're more common than I thought. But for as much as I'm in a reef shop or in a saltwater tank store, and I've just never come across one. So
It's interesting that I mean, maybe there's been some shift in the genus stuff that I haven't kept up with, but it looks like a blue devil with an orange tail, so I wouldn't go near it. But it's in the genus of damsels that are typically considered easygoing, right? Because the Chrysoptera have, or is it Chrysiptera? I don't know. But that's where the azure damsel, what's the one that always looks like the poor man resplendent angel from Australia? Dang, that's going to make me... Anyway, some listener knows what I'm talking about. But they're all pretty... I mean, they can be kind of punky, but not that bad,
yeah.
But I don't know. I would that orange. He looks like a red devil, blue devil to me.
Yeah, and that's the Live Aquaria description does say that.
Okay.
The blue, the orange tail blue damselfish is common for male blue damselfish, also known as the blue devil damselfish. The female is all blue. The male has the orange tail. So
What makes them great is they're really aggressive to all your tank mates, and they're really hard to catch.
yeah,
Because they know which rocks, which caves. Yeah.
yeah. I don't know where we were going, but we ended up.
Are you talking about
about
new
damsels?
store? Yeah. Oh yeah, because of the
was it the
Pavona.
Talbots?
Yeah, the
Talbots
pink
is the one you're
guys.
talking about, right? Yeah.
No,
what you're
there's
talking about? No. Those are cool. And those are
let's see.
those are the same.
Talbot's kind of got they're like a light bluish color, right?
No, like a pinkish.
Oh yeah, pink with like a yellow
dot with a with a yellow. Yeah.
I want to say because I used to always
Real.
refer to them to Jake as the poor man's resplendent, and I think it wasn't Jeremy who just wrote an article for Reef Builders, and he called them that too. I thought that was pretty funny.
Gosh, it's like right on the tip of my tongue. Now I'm in Google. I'm looking.
Did you talk about
Expensive, but they're worth it, especially when they start to get big.
you guys are cheating at Google.
Starkey damsel.
Starkey.
That's a cool damsel, man.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, those are neat. Yeah, they're like iridescent too. They like shimmer.
They have that. What's that other damsel that people buy for flatworms that has like an iridescent blue? They have like the larger. When they get bigger, their scales get slightly larger, and they have that iridescent blue. And then the yellow is lemon yellow. It's not that orangey yellow. So yeah, they're beautiful fish.
Yeah, very cool. Probably won't be getting one of those for my tank.
No, they're not bad. They're like $100, maybe 150. Which in this day and age, when a Potter's Angel is like $800, it's pretty good.
Yeah. Well, we'll get to your little announcement after we get through this like general reef talk stuff. But I wanted to talk, as you can see, I've got water in the tank, and it is of the salt variety, which is awesome.
Nice,
exciting.
I've been hard at work making salt water today. It's kind of a pain in the butt to do this in a large quantity. I guess this would be the first time that I've ever had to make this much salt water at one time. Because everything else has been like 40, 50, 60 gallons maybe here and there. So I'm learning, which is part of this hobby, and that's the fun of it. I got some Tampa Bay saltwater live sand in today. Went to go pick that up at Southwest Cargo. And that was a fun experience. They're like, you the guy with the coral? And I was like, it's live sand, but I'm not here to talk semantics with you guys. It just says live tropical fish on the box, so now we're all over the place. They're saying coral, it says fish, it's actually sand. I'm about 5 gallons of water away from actually running this system. So it's not actually, I'm running the two gyres, the two Red Sea wave makers there, but I'm so close. I just got to fill up that back chamber, and then I'm ready to go. Sump's all filled, ready to go.
So how are you going to, sorry, you were mentioning offline that you were going to put in the sump. I don't know if you were about to go there, but how are you going to put it in the sump? Because that divider slides up and down, right? So the sand can get underneath it.
Yeah, I'm going to tub it.
Okay.
I've got little those little plastic, not Rubbermaid, but you know what I'm talking about, like the Tupperware kind of tubs. I'm just going to toss it in there and get as much as I can in there, and then kind of disperse it through the other tanks.
Cool.
So we'll see.
You'll probably find some cool pistol shrimp in the sand. They're like real colorful.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to some of the critters. Raj was giving me crap last week about reef scabies, so
I heard herpes, but
dang it, Ocean.
Are you going to get a microscope and take a look at what's in there?
I should.
That'd be cool.
I should. That would be fun. Just get a little sample. I'm sure it's just teeming with life right now.
Right. I think that'd be rad. Just seeing all the life that's in there and
experience with
compare the different sands.
Yeah, the experience with Tampa Bay saltwater has been awesome. They're like super communicative. They're like up on emails and everything. The only dig I have is that at some point in the process of purchasing this, there is a like pay when you pick up kind of thing that happens. And I'm sure everybody in the industry who's ever picked up anything from Southwest Cargo or Delta Cargo or whatever knows that it's kind of like a pay when you get there kind of situation for the shipping. And I was not prepared for the number that was thrown my way this morning. Like we're all used to $40 to $50 in shipping costs, when you're doing overnight through UPS or FedEx and UPS now, if we were to send each other things without an account, I think it's like $160, $170 now for like a 6x6x6 or something. But this was like right at $100 for 40 total pounds, which I guess in the long run is a lot cheaper than actually shipping it. But like shipping it through UPS or FedEx. But it just was one of those things. Like after spending $75 on sand, then you're like, oh, here's another $100. This is the most expensive sand I've ever had in my life. So yeah, better help this dang cycle. That's all I gotta say. But yeah, they were awesome through the entire process. I think that they've been getting a little bit of a pump me up from Bulk Reef Supply. I think that they've been using that in some of those 52 weeks of reefing tanks. So
Nice.
yeah, it's really cool. It's like crushed seashells and things like that. It's I'd say it's probably like the sand is probably special grade kind of sized, and then you get a bunch of mixture of like crushed things in it, which is cool. So yeah, I'm gonna put that in a tub in the sump. I did think about just, you know what, screw it, I'm just gonna put it in the tank, and
Yes.
I didn't. I definitely don't have enough to cover the entire bottom, because that's not what the original plan was to do. So, but yeah, I want to keep it bare bottom just because I think that I need to stick to that plan. So, but yeah, I'm excited. It's been quite the process. It's just like trying to get a tank up and also do video and also do the podcast, but then also have a full-time job on top of it. It's just like there's people who are like, hey, these updates aren't coming fast enough. I'm like, you might get one a month because I'm working in real time here. Like if I had all day to, like, this could be up in a day, but I'm kind of pecking away at it here and there. So yeah, cable management is next. It's not awesome right now, just because I want to get this thing up and running and get some water running through this sump, through the reef mat and everything, and get this thing going. So
Cable management's the worst.
Yeah, and this could be what I end up just eating later down the road. But as I say, I'll get to the cable management part of this because, you can just shut that cabinet. So it is Halloween coming up, and there's definitely a web of something going on in there.
Yeah.
So
it's only going to get worse.
Yeah.
But what happens with me is I'll put it off a little bit because I know that something's going to change. And so I change things around, and then I'll lock everything down, do full cable management. Everything looks good. And then I realize I either have to remove something or change something, and it all has to come apart. And then it never goes back the way that it did originally. It's never as neat. I've lost patience at that point. Nothing ever goes back, right? Like even like the Velcro stuff, it just, I don't know. Once it's attached the first time and you tear it off, it doesn't go back nicely again. It's almost ruined.
Yeah. I had a friend reach out to me about the Adaptive Reef controller boards over the weekend, and she was like, so I'm just curious, how you ended up, attaching the power strip, because I haven't really seen that on a lot of people's. And I was like, well, this is how I did that. And then it kind of like clicked with her, and she was like, wait, are we just kind of like moving the rat's nest to behind this board now? And I was like, yeah, I mean, unless you want to organize the back, which, you can zip tie things and, cable management here and there just to make it easier for yourself if you need to get anything out of there. But you're basically just taking that entire rat's nest and smushing it against the wall or your tank or whatever. So I'm not going for perfection here. There's some guys out there that, they'll rewire everything and put new cords on things just so it all matches. And I'm just going for functional on this one, and it won't be pretty, but it'll be, you'll know where everything is and it's off the ground, and,
I will say one of the best recommendations, and it came from Jake, was it's the same cord that you plug your computer monitor in with, right? That these DC and LED ballasts have, right? And there's a website where you can buy short ones, one that's like 1 foot, 2 foot, 3 foot. And I did that to all of the lighting ballast, the pump ballast, all of that, so that you have less cable to shove behind that Adaptive Reef board.
Yeah.
And they have the plug swivels and it's flat. So when you plug it into your Apex or whatever controller you're using, you can kind of orient them nicely. And that was worth the money. And they weren't expensive. And you can get them in like different colors. So then you can, if you want to be crazy, you can make it all match, or you can be like, pink is pump, blue is light, or whatever, or
Yeah.
something.
Yeah, I
But
kept mine all the same color, but it was mono price, and ordered all the different length cables, some shorter, some I needed longer. But they also have white USB cords at different
oh,
lengths,
nice.
which was really cool. So I got a bunch of those for all the Apex stuff. And I mean, now you can pretty much find all of it on Amazon, but
Yeah.
if you're ordering enough,
Yeah.
going direct to mono price, you get a really, really good rate.
What's the website? Do you remember, Mark?
Monoprice.com.
Oh,
Monoprice.com.
Jake had a different one,
Yeah.
but I don't.
I mean,
I'll send it to you.
I was gonna say, I'd imagine you could just search any of those on Amazon, right?
Amazon's got a lot now, but
Yeah.
I still find monoprice to be better priced. Unless you're just trying to buy one thing, then it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, because that's the issue I'm facing right now. Is just you've got 4 or 5 feet of cable, and you don't need it, so
Yeah.
it should make sense to.
Monoprice came in really handy when I was doing everything in 220, and I was able to get all these cords with the right plug and not have to do all this adapting stuff or have to DIY the plug. And that was really cool because that install ended up being nice and clean, and everything matched.
I got
it
mine
that
from
OCD side.
mine are from cables.com.
Oh,
Very easy to remember. And you're not going to remember this, but it's the 5-15P to C13 PC to AC cord.
say that last part again. I'm writing it down.
Oh, it's the 5-15P to C13 PC to AC cord. If you search for that at cables.com, you can see they have them in white and green and every other color, and 6 feet, 15 feet, 3 feet. So that's another thing. If you need to put your ballast somewhere far away, you can get like a 15-foot cord as well. Well, actually, that makes sense because the other part goes to the light, but you know what I mean.
Yeah,
Um,
that's a good
so
tip.
yeah, that made cable management a lot less crazy. It still sucked, but
Yeah,
less sucky.
it's just those big ballasts. Oh, the bricks are just, and the light. So these are the 160s, the Red Sea 160s, and the bricks for those are huge,
Yeah.
fat.
One thing with the Kessels that I liked was they have mounting holes, the ballast. So
Yeah.
you can get 3D printed. That's another good tip is what I do with the aqua illumination is you can go to Etsy or wherever and get 3D printed ballast holders, and you screw those in and then you just slide the ballast on it. But I did like with Kessels, they just got the, badass aluminum heat sink ballast that you just have holes on the sides. So you just screw them in.
Yeah, that's
So
awesome.
I wish they were all
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah, that'd be nice. Extra money.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Always.
Spending.
overall, I think I'm cruising on this thing, and once we start the cycle, and it'll just be a matter of time. But yeah, I like how the aquascape turned out. I'll have to send you a picture, Mark, and
Yeah.
show you how that all worked out. And I think we settled on something good. Raj, fresh back from Quebec. How are things going with you
Yes.
and your world?
Outstanding. Everything's good. Everything's good. I kind of got my groove back on the tank. I was shared with you guys last week that I was stuck in that funk and I had that roadblock. And Mark, you and I talked about this for a while. And, it's just so difficult to move past that when you're just stuck. And finally I got past it, and now I've got all these ideas are now just flowing through my head, and a lot of it is overcomplications, and then but because I'm not getting bogged down by it, I'm able to just flush through that stuff and kind of make progress. So I decided, I'm going to backlight the tank. And so I thought, okay, let me go ahead and mark this one off the list because it'll be an easy one. And I go on Amazon. Give me a 5 foot or 6 foot RGB strip. And I think it was about 980 billion options came up, and they all looked the damn same. So, if you guys know, if anybody knows of one that you've used that works well for that, throw it in the comments or let me know, because that I didn't waste but like 30 seconds. I scrolled down that page. I was like, yeah, no, this is for another time, because I don't have time to really figure out which one of these 100-foot rolls I've got to screw with. I expected there to be a more solid strip that I could use, not one of the rolls, but it didn't show up on the first long page, so I had to kind of move on. And that's been one thing that I've been getting stuck on, is I don't move on. I just get stuck on something. It's funny because I harp on my kids, like just teaching them test taking skills. I'm like, you go through the whole test. If you don't know a question, just skip it and move on immediately. Don't waste your time. And then go back after you've finished all the ones that you know, and now spend time on the ones where you really have to think about. Because I've seen it a lot of times where you let those questions that you're maybe not sure about or you really have to think about slow you down, and you don't even finish. And then you have to rush through the last part, and you end up getting a lower grade than you should have. And it's the same thing that I get stuck on with this type of stuff. And so kind of just using that and skipping it, moving on to something else. And I jumped back onto the sump design. So finally got all of that figured out, and just need to put a couple more finishing touches to the drawing, and that's off to fabrication. So that's locked in. Skimmer's locked in. Still haven't picked a light. Because there's so many cool options, and I am kind of stuck on that one because of the season that we're in, and not wanting to pick one. And then next week they're like, hey, new product announcement. We got all these new lights. And now I'm stuck with the old gen light, which obviously is going to be perfectly fine, but it'll still hurt me.
Yeah.
I'm having that problem with laptops because I need to buy a new laptop, and they're all like, you go on YouTube and you're like, which is the best laptop?
Yeah.
And they're all like, don't buy a laptop right now. There's new ones coming. And you're like,
yeah, there's always new ones coming. I just got I got
so
the
close,
pre-order
though.
on the 15.
Yeah.
On the iPhone 15. I was just due for a new upgrade on a phone. So I was like, you know what? Cool. This timed out perfectly.
You get to have their new invention that they just came out with, the USB-C port.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had never heard about that until this
No,
phone. So I'm really
Apple
excited
invented it for the iPhone.
Jazz to use this thing. So I am holding what I used, Raj, for my Pico tank when I frosted the back glass. And this is, I think the problem that I ran into with those ribbon LEDs is that how do you make them stand up like this? You know,
to light upwards. Yeah.
Yeah. So this allows you to kind of, you can mount it to the stand, and you can kind of aim it towards the wall, or you can aim it towards the back glass. But I just don't know how powerful, this style of light.
I don't think it needs to be all that powerful.
I don't know how much you need for how tall is the tank?
It's 20 inches.
I guess that's not terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. You might have to tinker with some different options.
Well, see, I like that style, and that's what I was hoping would pop up when I did whatever search it was. And I did a couple of different searches, and it always came up as the same thing.
Yeah.
And it was those strip rolls. And then, I mean, I guess that's fine, but like you said, I would have to then make something to hold that at an angle that I wanted, and that's just overcomplicating something that doesn't need to be overcomplicated.
Face the light toward the tank water and just put a hole, like make it one of those Hollywood lights, you can make it like dance all around.
I can get a Raspberry Pi and control each individual diode.
There you go. Man.
All right.
Govee.
That's not overcomplicating it.
Yeah. I think Govee is the company, LED company.
Yeah, that's who my kids, because they all wanted their furniture in their rooms to light up and stuff, and we bought the Govee stuff, and it works pretty good.
They've got this whole
I'll be right back. I need 2 seconds.
Okay. They've got this residential line right now that they've been pushing for these permanent LED lights on your house. And we've got there's a neighbor in our town, like down the street a little bit, that installed them, and they just always have them running, just always going. Like you'll drive by and it's like purple one night, it's like orange the next night. I guess it'd be like Halloween season, so whatever you want to put up there. But I just
So
I
this is
always
like the uplighting on the house?
no, like you hang it from where you would hang like Christmas lights on your eaves and up and down.
Yeah. They sell a product you can permanently install, and then you
Exactly.
can use
Yep.
it for Christmas, Halloween,
Yep.
whatever.
They're just always on, and you could. It's more. I guess it'd be more downlighting than anything. But yeah, that's what Govee is like pushing right now. So I would say, just talk with someone who's done this in freshwater, because there's got to be a product out there that they all kind of use.
Yeah.
Especially those aquascapers. There's got to be some sort of product that they use all the time.
Yeah, I'm planning on hitting up Mike Sinsky at ADG because he does that a lot with his hardscapes and freshwater stuff. So I want to kind of pick his brain. He's traveling right now to an install, so I got to catch him at just the right moment and see if I can't snag some info from him.
I just, it's a British guy. He's got a beard, shaved head, and he does
Geordie?
freshwater planted stuff in the UK.
Geordie Scaper? No?
MD fish tanks or MD something.
yeah. He was just at ADG, right?
Yeah, and he did like several videos with them. And when I was done watching him, I was like, I'm going to tear down my tank and set up a freshwater tank. Listening to the Sensky brothers talk, it's like listening to like Steve Jobs or something. Like you're just like, yes, I want to do that. Like they have what's the word I'm looking for? They've got a vibe, like.
Oh yeah.
I was like, those guys are cool. Like they got the tats, they got the sleeve, one arm, and the cool glasses, and they're just like, what would really go well with this? And they're like decorating the roots, and I was like, this is like, why can't saltwater be like this? This is freaking awesome.
See, since I just got back from Montreal, I would refer to that as je ne sais quoi.
Yeah. You're like, when that guy walks into like a fish conference, like you feel a cool breeze,
Yes, right.
We're trying to get. I've got a bid on for Mike to be on the show. So.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I almost feel like if we had Jeff on the show, it might take 4 days to get through the podcast. That dude,
We'd have to rotate
can
in.
talk, and it's all great stuff. But I just don't know that we all have 4 days to talk to Jeff Sensky.
Maybe though, if we did the 4 days and we wouldn't
Wait,
have
which
to
one's
record
Jeff?
for another 6 months.
Jeff, I think he's I would describe him as the taller of the two.
Okay.
Maybe
Yeah, that
he's
was the
not-
one.
Maybe he's
that's
not
set up-
taller, but
Yeah, I know. He's real mellow. Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Jake always said good things about them, and I was like, that would be a great fly on the wall moment. Like listening to Jake and him just go down a rabbit hole about freshwater stuff. But I was just like, yep, keep going.
Yeah.
I was trying to get Mike when Jeff was aquascaping one of our tanks at the Aquashella Lounge.
Oh, that's right. You guys did have them on that. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I was trying to get Mike to talk shit and criticize Jeff's every move, right? Like he could to be a commentator, but in a way that it was going to be mic'd up, and so that Jeff couldn't hear it, but he's sitting there commentating on his brother's work. He wouldn't go for it. They wouldn't do it. But that would have been really, really good stuff.
Just love each other too much.
Like if you win the lottery, right? You always have like the thoughts, like what kind of car you would buy and whatever. It's like, I know what I want to do with a reef tank. Like I'll do that myself, because half the fun would be setting it up. But like I would probably pay those guys to set up a, like a Altum Angel tank. Like the one guy they visited on the MD fish tanks, whatever the guy, like he had that massive tank in his front room. I would pay those guys if I had lottery money. That's
Yeah. Some of those freshwater tanks are pretty amazing.
I wish we were like that more on the saltwater side. It's getting there. I mean, I think the NSA or negative space aquascaping with the rocks I tried it. It ended up not being my cup of tea, but I do appreciate the artistic element in the design of those rocks and how people are really taking a passion into making those forms, right? Like Top Shelf does that, right? And it's that's cool. But even if you look at like some of the old ADG reef tanks, they look amazing, and you can just see what their aquascaping eye can do. They had this LPS tank. It was a Red Sea tank, and I think Reef Builders covered it. They did a video on it, and it's just amazing, the aquascaping on it.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I
I've
remember
gone on
that.
enough on those
I feel like
guys.
I've seen that video. Is it a shallow tank? Is it more shallow?
No, I think it's just a regular
Just a
Red Sea.
Huh.
I don't know what size it is. It might be a 625 like yours. But yeah, it had a lot of LPS. It had a lot of zoanthids, and then small fish, small cardinals, to create that sense of scale, right? Like you put small fish in a tank like that, the tank looks massive, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, they
They
definitely
do really good with that. They do a really good job with utilizing a lot of small fish. They don't rely on that big, showy fish, and
Yeah.
to make that impact. It's almost like the tank really just speaks for itself, and the aquascaping and the corals speak for itself. If there wasn't even a fish in there, and then
Yeah.
the fish just add that element.
Yeah,
I don't know what it
exactly.
is, but yeah, that they've got it.
If you threw like a Naso tang in there, it would just be ruined.
It would. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a good point. I think that now I'm gonna do small fish in this tank, so I just changed my mind. It's all changed again.
Damn it. Scratch.
But that would be kind of cool. It does make sense, and I feel like Raj, to echo you, you said they just take design first and foremost. I think into everything they do. How can you play with naturescapes and make that something that just you see it, it just speaks to you. It's hard to go to any hobbyist tank and just get goosebumps when you're looking at something, but their showroom is spectacular, and I've seen it in many videos. I've never been before, but I think it'd be awesome to go visit them for sure.
It's a cool place. It's very zen-like, and it's a showroom, So it and they've really embraced that term, and they've just showcased their skills in many different ways. And they've got some tanks that are super, super tiny, like really, really small pico tanks that are done so damn well. And that they spent the same amount of like time and energy into thinking about how they were going to execute that tank as they would a large tank. They have stuff with, smoke effects coming out of them, and just waterfalls and all kinds of crazy stuff. And it's amazing.
Yeah.
Those
Definitely
tanks
a
are
place
a
to go.
lot of maintenance to keep them like that.
Oh, God, yeah.
You got the bottle brush scrubbers that you gotta clean the algae and all the piping, because the piping is glass, and to make it disappear, you can't have algae growing in it. And plants, man, you got to prune those things all the freaking time. They grow so
Yeah.
fast.
Yes.
But it's just like in our hobby, it's all like flashy neon lights now, and crazy corals with crazy names, and that's cool. Like I know a lot of people love that, but then you watch their stuff and you're like, you feel like that connection to nature when you see that tank. You start to think about biotopes and where these fish come from, and to me, that's a cool thought process to conjure from an aquarium that you're just looking at, right? That you're not looking at just the glow in the dark craziness. There's something really calming, like you said, very zen.
Yeah.
So
Well, you nailed it, right? They don't rely on the names. You're not going. They're using basic bitch fish, but they make such a big impact. Like they do it in a way that you're like, oh man, those fish look incredible in that tank.
Yeah.
And some of these fish don't even have much color to speak of. Like they're just kind of there, but they look absolutely incredible. And even some of the scapes, there's no color in them. It's just, you've got the brown wood, you've got a brownish yellowish rock in there. The substrate is about the same, and then the fish are the same color. It's very monochromatic, but there's something about it. Like it just all comes together. There's no reliance on big name corals or flashy fish or lighting, and I don't know what it is.
Yeah. You hit it on the head. I don't know why it appeals to me the way it does, but it appeals to a lot of people, right? I mean, Takashi Amano, all of that. I mean, it's got a huge following, that area of the hobby. So
Yeah, for sure. Well, I don't know how to transition into. I don't know. Let's choose our own adventure here. That Choose Your Own Adventure book may be going into the Toy Hall of Fame. It was nominated as part of the 2023 nominee class. So I don't know if Choose Your Own Adventure was a thing that you guys did, but I enjoyed it. So let's have Mark choose our adventure. Do we want to go to maintenance routines, or do we want to talk about the elephant in the room?
Well, you also had Nemesis Coral, right?
Your Nemesis Coral. I mean, that's a good route to go if you want to go that route. It might be a little scary.
Mine's predictable because I've already talked about it. The coral, I don't hate the coral. I hate that it's in the hobby. Is Palithoa grandis. I think it's very dangerous. I think it's very dangerous to your trash guy that picks up your trash. I think it's dangerous to somebody in your yard if that's where you put your corals. I don't think the juice is worth the squeeze on that coral. Like, I think it's a cool coral. Don't get me wrong, but as soon as you're like, yeah, that coral can kill you, I'm like, oh, okay, I can live without it pretty easy.
Yeah.
That's an easy answer. I'd say the coral I don't like to keep anymore is a Kinopora, strung spunner. There's other ones, right? They just, if they're happy, they grow fast and they're aggressive, man. Jeez. Like for chalice corals, they can be pretty mean. And maybe I got that wrong, but it's just in my tank. It was like a coral you had to prune a lot. And if you didn't, it wasn't like it's just going to grow. Oh, it's close to this coral now. It was like Hydenoptera style, like, get out of my way. I'm going to kill you because I'm just, I don't know. Maybe not all Echinoporas are like that, but the one I had was just insanely aggressive. And I couldn't figure out for a long time what was going on. So that would be the coral that Nemesis is a strong word. It's just, again, I'm like, yeah, I don't want to put up with that. Because again, I'm like you. I don't like to hack things back. But when your coral that's growing and taking over everything is that aggressive, it's a little rough. But I've heard that about, I've heard people say that about Bernard Poras too. I've never had, the creeping Goni style stuff yet. But I've heard that those guys are pretty mean too. I don't keep Galaxia. I don't know. Some of those that can really wreak havoc on neighboring corals. For me, they're cool corals, and I respect what they are, but I don't want to keep them. So
yeah,
there's my answer for that one.
I've got a couple of Galaxia in the tub right now, and that was a big consideration as you put these guys into a tub where the flow was not really well thought out to start. So I kind of had to shift those guys around in the tank as we went on. But yeah, those sweepers can get, I think one of these guys was throwing like 8, 9, 10-inch sweepers at one point. It's just crazy how those things can just whip around in there. And yeah, you can kind of combat that with the flow and everything and which way those sweepers go. But sometimes they can fight the current. They can go the other way. They don't just go with the flow either. So, but there's just, I think for me, there's been, as of late, at least in the last couple of years, I've noticed a decent amount of color variety or color morphs in those. Yeah. Top Shelf has a lot. They've got a kind of a pinkish one. There's like that gold torchy kind of look. And of course, then you've got your greens and your purples and, the typical Galaxia stuff. But that, I got a little bit of collectoritis and I was like, oh, I haven't seen this color before, So that's where I got on the Galaxia stuff.
I got one more.
Liked the Galaxias.
Yeah, I didn't either.
It never did it for me. And like you said, that they're gonna reach out and they'll pick something that they hate, and they're gonna just reach out with the stingers and sweepers and kick its ass. It's like, have you guys seen that video with the dogs, Tony and Ezekiel?
No.
Oh, yeah. I'm gonna send it to you, but it's like that. And now the story's not even going to make sense because if you haven't seen the video, you don't get the reference. But it's two dogs on the opposite side of the road. one dog's name's Tony, the other one's name's Ezekiel, right? And he's like, "Hey, F you." And he's like, "What?" The guy's like, "What?" And it's like, "What's your name?" "My name's Tony." "You, Tony." And it goes back and forth like that. It's once you see the video, you'll get the humor on it, but that's how I always saw those corals, is they're just gonna reach around, go out of their way to just kill something, and never appealed to me.
Yeah, I mean, Jake loved them, and he would argue you could put them in a place, have the flow direct the sweepers away. But it's just like, yeah, that's cool when you have 30 reef tanks in a studio and you can move shit around, right? But it's like in the suburban home with one reef tank, it's kind of a pain in the ass, right? It's like, all right, you've just become a high maintenance coral because now I got to adjust my flow. I got to do all this crap so that you don't kill everybody. I mean, it's, yeah. The other one I love, but I have problems with is hammer corals, but I think we've talked about it. That's like the one coral that I have a reaction to if it's in the tank. So
yeah.
I might have to give those up one day.
Branching Galaxia. We had talked about that with Meckley.
Yeah.
And he got one in. I wonder how it's doing, but that is a coral that I would love to have in the tank. I think that'd be awesome. I'm assuming that they probably have the same sweeper.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. It's a good question
that we all know, but yeah, that's a cool growth structure. That's for sure. My Nemesis coral, I kind of took this a different way in that just a coral that I've always had bad luck with, and I've never been able to successfully keep Micromusa for whatever reason. There's just so many different varieties of colors and everything, and I think you get into that mode where you start to get all the different color morphs and everything, and I don't know what it is for me, and maybe it was just in a smaller tank. Maybe I'd have more success in a larger tank, I don't know, or with more experience now, but they've just always eventually receded and died after that. So but yeah, Micromusa I've never really had good luck with. There is the what they call the Holy Grail Micromusa that a lot of people have had tons of luck with in the hobby, and it's a really cool looking yellow, red, blue, green, kind of Micromusa, and I've seen it more and more at frag swaps, and that's a good sign when you start to see those things more and more at frag swaps, and the price starts to come down on it a lot because people are growing it more and it's doing really well in the hobby. That's a good coral to kind of grab onto, especially if you're a beginner. A lot of that stuff that's been in the hobby for a while just kind of shows its true colors and that it can adapt to the environment that's around it with a lot easier than something you get from like a mariculture or something like that.
Yeah, that's a good one because I haven't had great luck with them either. And again, Reef Builders did a video on a Denver fish store, and they had this tiny pico tank overgrown with Micromusa, and all it had was like a hang on the back refugium, and I'm like, okay, why can't I do that?
It's also possible that we're beating the crap out of them with light.
Yeah,
it's a pretty low light coral. I don't know. Maybe I got lazy and didn't target feed enough. I don't think you should have to do that with those, but I don't know.
Yeah, if you have to target feed a coral, it's going to die in my tank because I'm not target feeding anything. They're either getting remnants of fish food or they're eating fish poop. That's all they've got.
Yeah.
Well, did I tell you what I did with a fathead dendro? I put it on a magnet and I mounted it directly below the auto feeder. So when that thing feeds the fish, the dendro's like, oh, hey, thanks, guys. And so far, it's not dead. So maybe this little MacGyver trick's going to work out.
That's a good idea. I think the other two, you had mentioned the Grandis. I will say they are Pallies, but their pet names are the Nirvana and the Pandora. Probably the worst Pallies known to mankind, and not necessarily because they're dangerous. They probably are, but they grow like crazy, and it's just one of those things where I'm telling you, as a hobbyist, you hear that and you go, but not for me. It's not going to do that for me. And then you end up throwing out like just egg crate after egg crate of this stuff because it has just grown all over the place. And then like you said, it's dangerous for everybody around you. The garbage man, not good for the environment that it's going into for sure. So I don't know. I can't believe, I can believe, but I can't believe that people are still buying those from fish stores and online. They grow so fast
with no concern about liability, right? That's
Yeah.
shoot, if I was a fish store, I'd like make you sign a waiver when you bought it that you can't sue me.
Yeah.
Your dog eats it in the backyard and dies because you threw some in, you threw a rock back there that had some on it. I mean, I think dogs are smart enough to sniff something and go, "Ooh, I shouldn't eat that." But
Are they though?
yeah, I don't know.
I've seen them eat some pretty gross stuff.
But if I was a local fish store, I wouldn't even mess with those for the liability.
Yeah,
What if one of
definitely.
your employees, gets sick from it or poisoned, or it's just not worth it, man. It's leave the cone snails and the blue ring octopus and the palethos, just leave it all in the ocean, man. So
As much as I was kind of a Zoa guy when I first got into this, and I think it's easy to do that when you're a beginner, I do not think I'll be putting any zoanthids in this large tank.
I still love zoanthid gardens though. Those are so sweet looking.
pretty.
Yeah, they are. I think, I don't know, maybe if it's its own island, but for the most part, there's only like 2 islands in here at this point that could, be potentials for that. But we'll see. We'll see how it goes. What about for you, Raj? Any Nemesis corals that you can't seem to keep or that you hate?
Oh, my famously hated Bacillopora damicornis that always goes sexual, takes over your tank, and kills everything that it touches. Yeah, I've had to break down tanks because of that garbage coral, and God, it kills me. That's my nemesis because it truly haunts me. That coral has killed so many huge colonies and just great corals that I wasn't going to get the chance to grow out again. And
Yeah.
the only way to get rid of that thing was to just break down the entire tank, throw away every piece of plumbing. It just had to be stripped completely. And
You
even
scared
then,
me.
I was not sure that I had it all out.
I think you
That
brought
is-
this up before because I have
That's-
a small colony in my tank, and every time I look at it, I hear your voice in my head.
When that thing goes sexual, you're going to be like, damn it, I got to call Raj. And I'm going to be like, I told you.
I want to
I'm not going to be that guy that holds back. I am going to be the I told you so guy. Just so you know.
You're right. Yeah, you deserve it.
I do want to capture the larva sometime. I don't think were you, who was on the Richard Ross episode? Was it Mark? Were you on that with me or was it Raj?
Nope, it was me.
Okay. Well, he was talking about how you can capture the larva
Yeah.
from a damicornis, and I think that would be so cool to do just as like an experiment. But I guess that would also mean that you'd probably have to successfully keep it as well. So
So you're saying to like kill it generationally? You catch the larva and then you punish it? That sounds pretty exciting.
no, from my like scientific standpoint, I think it'd be really cool to isolate and to see and to look at and observe, those kinds of things. But
I like where Raj was going, because now everybody's talking about epigenetics, where like trauma can be passed
Yes.
genetically. So if you traumatize the Bacillopora, maybe the next generation won't go sexual because they're just like they inherited the trauma via the epigenetics.
See, they know what's up.
anything else for you, Raj? Any other corals?
Another one that bothers me. It's such an easy coral to get, to grow, looks great, right? It's your bird's nest, the Seriatopora. But it always seems to do the same thing where it dies from the inside out. Or one day you wake up and it's just RTN'd completely without rhyme or reason. I still haven't figured out why it does it, but it always does it. And that one just bothers me because it's so easy otherwise. Like there's just nothing difficult about it except when it does that.
You're talking about the pink, right? Because
Yeah.
the Ponape does is actually okay. Like that one,
Right.
yeah. But the
Yeah,
pink
no, the
is,
pink. Yeah,
yeah.
the pink specifically. It just, I don't know, it's an asshole.
That's the one
Yeah.
with the pointy tips, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I've had that happen with what's the like the mint green typical bird's nest that you see. I believe that it's just an ORA bird's nest is what they would call it.
Is that the Ponape or?
Perhaps I've had that one do the RTN overnight thing, but I would,
I thought the
they'd
Ponape
always
was the dual color.
I think you're right. There's another one that has ORA bird's nest.
looks like the Ponape's.
But there's just a green bird's nest from the Ponape is green with like pink tips, right?
Yeah,
Right.
it's pointy. The bird's nest that I am referring to has more of a rounded tip to it, or at least the polyps make it look like it is rounded.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it did that, it starts to shade itself out, and if you were to remove the colony, the branches on the underside are white, or not as healthy looking. But I don't. They recently mentioned this in a Top Shelf video, and I'm trying to recall what they were talking about. I think they do a fair amount of regular trimming on their bird's nest so that doesn't happen. Because I think that's where it starts, is when it shades itself out, like it gets too big too fast.
That's one that's recently hybridized in a tank, right? I want to say I forget the coral farmer that did it, but that one always I thought would be like Bacillopora, like where you get the polyps bail out and just hey, I'm gonna live on this power head. But they never did for me. But they have that look to them, like they're gonna do that to you one day.
I remember Jake. He mentioned that bird's nest. Was it blue?
I don't remember.
Lazy's blue
Lazy. That was
zing.
Yep.
Because I remember him talking about that, and I immediately went to the website. And I was like, "This thing is so cool," because it's got like kind of a green base, and then it's bluish, teal, green polyps, and yeah.
That's a cool coral, and I think easier to grow than that damn pink.
Lazy's House of Coral.
And I mean, I like pink corals, man. I like Stylophora. That's why I have a Bacillopora in my tank. I have a Stylophora as well. Pink corals are cool, man.
A lot of them only show up in white light, though.
Well, yeah, I like white or light, right?
Yeah.
So I love the blue corals. Like I love blue mushrooms. I love torts.
Yeah.
Same.
But yeah, you can't go glow in the dark with those.
Nope.
They just
It's like a shadow in there.
Yeah, I was
Can't go
watching
with the Windex
somebody's tank like that. Maybe it was the photography. Doesn't pick up the lighting right. But you just saw like it was on YouTube, and the guy's yellow tank swam by, and it wasn't yellow, and you're like, I get it. It's cool that all your orange corals are glowing, but
Yeah.
that poor tang. It's just imagine being that tang, like you're just like swimming in a black light constantly.
Yeah, it is ORA Bird of Paradise,
Bird of
cross-pollinated
paradise.
That's
Yeah.
it. Bird of paradise.
with a new morph that is blue and turquoise. He calls it the Blue Zing. It says Lazy's House of Coral, and they are available until this goes out, and then they're not because he's going to sell out. He actually mentions the one and only Blue Zing. Check out this article on Reef Builders. You get a frag for $49 right now. So it's cool. It's cool. I really think that this might have to go in the tank. Yeah, that's awesome. I'm glad you brought that back up. I totally forgot about that. But I remember how hyped I was after I heard you guys talking about it. I don't know if he did a video on it or if you guys were just talking about it on Reef Therapy. But
I think we just talked. Well, I don't know. Yeah, I was bad about reading the Reef Builders articles at that point. And he would bring something up, and I was like, "Yeah," and he's like, "Yeah, I wrote about it."
oh yeah, I read that.
Yeah.
Well, tell me about this, and this.
Let's talk about this article. I'm like, shoot, I gotta go read it real quick.
Dang it.
Yeah, I was pretty bad about that.
Well, I don't even know if I want to go to maintenance at this point.
No,
I feel like maintenance is kind of boring at this point in this podcast. We can always get to that.
my maintenance is boring, so
Yeah.
I don't do enough of it. So I think Raj's maintenance would be interesting because he's so meticulous. Like, he likes clean tank. He doesn't like any scabies in the tank. He's going with a clear background to backlight it instead of a black background, which means he's gonna have to scrape the black back glass all the time. So his
Oh yeah.
maintenance is gonna be he's gonna have the whiteboard with the checklist, I'm thinking.
There's a lot. I have routines.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it definitely includes a lot of scraping the glass to make sure that there is no coralline anywhere. I don't want it on there. And so I do spend a lot of time cleaning the glass surfaces. But I try to automate, well, I wouldn't quite say automate, but simplify everything else. So shop vacs to get all the media out of a reactor, things like that. Just things that are going to make things a lot easier and quicker for me. Water changes where it's a couple of valve operation, right? Water goes in, water goes out. So there's no measuring or there's no possibility of overflowing, anything like that. Like I can walk away and nothing's going to happen. So just things like that. But as far as liking to do it, man, I don't like to do it. But that's why I set everything up in a very specific way so that it's easier. I just found that if I make it super, super easy, I don't really have that excuse. And then I can just get it done. I can set the water change and walk away and come back later. Like it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, I do the same. That's the automation piece of the Apex has been, an awesome upgrade for me because I think I wrote an article on Reef Builders about how I hadn't done a water change in my reef tank back in the day for an eternity, and then I sent in an ICP test and everything was fine. I was like, well, then why am I doing water changes? And but when I set up this tank, it's not new anymore. I guess it's creeping up on 2 years now. I set up an auto water change system, and yeah, it's like even when I'm lazy, I can just mix up in a trash can 35 gallons worth of salt while I'm on a conference call. Let that mix, and then I press a button, and it's going to do a water change. Is it going to get all the detritus out with a gravel vac? No, but it's kind of nice to have that push button. And sometimes I'll make the salt and just leave it, and then a month later, I'm just like, yeah, let me push the button and then it goes for 24 hours and it does the water change. And so I've been much better about water changes because of the automation, at least, or as Jake would call water exchanges, because, that's what he kept correcting me on that. Yeah. And then, yeah, little things like that. I suck at cleaning skimmer cups. I wait till they're so full that my wife's like, "What is that smell?" And I'm like, "Oh crap, I gotta."
I had my skimmer cup draining into a drain line that went into my sewer. That way, I didn't really need to empty it that much, and then I could. I would do the lazy clean where I wouldn't even take the cup off. I'd raise the water level up and just let it flush itself out.
Wet skim it out. Yeah,
just wet skim it out and then tune it back down. It's super, super lazy way of doing it, but man, it worked great. I never got into using the Apex to automate any of that stuff, though. I never.
Yeah, we've talked about that. I took apart a dose once, and yeah, I was like, oh, because it's like Honhai dosing pumps that you can buy on Alibaba or whatever else. Maybe I got the name wrong, but I was like, I mean, they work great. Don't get me wrong; they've been spot on, dead reliable. But yeah, I don't know. But I don't know if there's any other equipment any better out there. I haven't messed with GHL. I haven't messed with Coral View. But I at that point it's like the Apple thing. Like once you get one Apple thing and then you see the ecosystem and it's like, well, if you get a MacBook, it does this with your phone and it syncs all the photos and you're like, I guess I'm buying a MacBook for my next laptop. And then it's like, oh, if you get Apple TV, you can do that.
Yeah.
It's like once you've bought your Apex, and then it's just little additions, like, well, not cheap, but like, oh, you can add a dosing pump, or
Yeah.
you can add this. Oh, you can add these float switches. And so the next thing you know, my Fusion console or web app is, scrolling. You got to scroll all the way to the bottom to turn off the sump light. You're like, come on. But so I'm in too deep now. I wish I could get. I've played with GHL hardware at trade shows and stuff, and I like holding. Don't get me wrong. I'm misspeaking. I did have a GHL doser for a while, and the thing was really well built, but the interface was hell on earth back then, especially for Mac users. I think they've improved that quite a bit, but I wish I could get Fusion with GHL components. So, and maybe that's where
Yeah.
Coral View is now. Maybe they're like that perfect middle. I don't know.
It
I
could
like
be.
that.
I haven't played with their Hydros at
Yeah,
all.
me neither. But I like their water resistant connections versus USB.
Hmm.
People say good things about the interface, but then, to try to swap that out, I mean, how much money would I be spending? And then I'd have to sell the Apex it's like,
Toss
And
in the
then-
And then there's
backyard.
the learning curve. You've got to learn how that system works, the programming and all of that, and kind of figure out all of the nuances there. So I get it. It's tough.
yeah, I'm in too deep.
I've got all the Red Sea gear, and that's all an ecosystem,
Yeah.
all
Yeah.
the Reef Beat app, and so I'm not gonna use a controller to start, and I'm gonna see what I need and what kind of things I could benefit from using a controller. Obviously having a pH monitor is awesome, and temperature control and all that kind of stuff is nice, but I'm gonna kind of go solo for a little bit without a controller and to see how well this stuff does on its own and how well I can control most of it from the app. So
Do you have their doser? Their Reef
I do.
dose?
I
That
do.
thing looks good. Yeah.
Yeah, it's cool. So I also got the pull-out controller board thing.
Nice.
So you can just, if you need to change out any of the elements that you're dosing, you can do that pretty easily. They gave me all their neon colored hoses and
Nice.
tubing, so that's all going to be plumbed eventually in the tank. But yeah, I'm gonna
Color
go.
coding it all.
Yeah, I'm gonna go sans controller for a little bit and just see what happens there. I would imagine I'll get into one eventually, but I just don't know which one it is. I've said this in multiple podcasts. I've had this Profilux sitting here in a box for
What?
probably a year. Yeah, because I've got an Apex on my Lagoon, and then I didn't have anything on the frag tank because I knew that was coming down. So really, it's like who's got an Apex on their 25-gallon tank? Me, I do. But that Profilux might be the one that goes on there, just because it's here. You know what I mean? So
Yeah, there was
see
a
what
store
happens.
locally, Marine Designs. Did you ever go there? It was up on 141.
Yeah.
It's awesome place. And Mike, he was a huge Profilux fan, and every install that he did he used the Profilux system. And this was a while back, but he said that the one thing, the most difficult part was just learning how to program it. But once you've got that down, he loved it. He's like, it was absolutely flawless. Everything works like it's supposed to. It's great. And again, this was probably, damn near 10 years ago now. Probably not that long, but everything has gotten better since. So I know that the Apex, the app is a lot better than the original clunkiness, and the programming is a lot simpler. And so I wonder what the newest iteration is like on their end. But component wise, it was pretty spectacular.
Yeah, I mean, if I had, I'm a bit of a gearhead, and I don't put a lot of gear on my tanks, but I love the automation and damage control or risk aversion
Yeah.
factor. And again, if I had lottery money, I would go spend, $3,000 on, because to replace my Apex, I'd have to, every float switch, every leak detector I have leak detectors on 2 floors. I'd have to spend thousands on a GHL setup or on a Coral View setup. But if I had that kind of money, I would, just because I do like that kind of stuff. And it's in my wheelhouse of what I do for a living. So it's the technical aspect of it is kind of interesting to me. And, but yeah, it's once you're in one system, you might as well commit. And Apex, my first Apex was an Aqua controller, right? So like I go way back with the Neptune products. And that thing was like the hardware was robust on the original Aqua controller. And then you had the EB8s, and those were robust. And then it's all tactile, right? Somebody could tell me that they're just as reliable, although my experience has not been the case. But like once they went plastic with the EB832,
Yep.
like, what is this? And then the little AC to DC converter in there blew. And then I had to buy a new one. And I cracked that one open, and it had a Meanwell replacement in it. I'm like, all right, so they knew there was an issue. So that kind of annoyed me. That's the one thing in this aquarium hobby is like there's well, it's not just in the aquarium hobby, but it's like there's no acknowledgement like, we picked a bad component, like I get like 30 recall notices on my wife's brand new Pilot, Honda Pilot. But like when a Shego heater at 600 watts doesn't do so good, like you don't hear about it, right?
Yeah.
And when you have a little AC to DC module go bad, or I don't know, like they tend to be, the manufacturers tend to be quiet around that stuff, and I get it. I get what they're trying to do, but it's frustrating. I really like the AI. I'm a huge fan of AI, right? I think their interface is amazing, and I really wanted to get the Grow blades and try those out. But then you start to see like where people are like, hey, the spectrum's slightly different on one side versus the other. And you see it all over the forums, but there's, again, no real acknowledgement publicly. Like, hey, guys, we're trying to figure this out. And that small stuff sort of irks me for how much money I spend. So, but it's a hobby, It's not like, it's not a car, like the Honda Pilot, has to keep my kids alive when I drive them to soccer practice, right? So, I do think life support's important. I mean, these organisms are fragile, and we catch them and ship them halfway across the world and stick them in glass boxes. So I think the life support system needs to have some accountability, but I don't know where I'm overthinking this and where it's like there's some validity to it, right? I think it's there's a gray area in between there of like, well, like, what do you expect us to do? We didn't know that this thing was going to do this, and we put a better part in it and we fixed it, but I don't know. That's where I'm at, but I can't believe you have an Apex and a GHL and you're not going to use it on this tank, though. That's
Just not yet. I'll
not
get
yet.
there.
Okay, all right.
I'm gonna limp into it. I just want to see what I just want to see what the equipment does on its own in the Red Sea ecosystem, and then we'll go from there.
But you still, I mean, is there stuff cloud connected? Like, could you turn off your Red Sea return pump while you're on vacation if you had to?
Yes.
Okay.
Interesting.
They don't have the only thing that I don't like about it is that nothing is Bluetooth, so it's all on your Wi-Fi, which is.
I like that better. I got annoyed when AI went back to Bluetooth. And the reason for that was that the whole AI cloud thing, remote, doesn't work anymore. And I distinctly remember going to Florida on vacation, and something was going on with my tank, and I didn't know what. And it was in the middle of the night, and I got an Apex alert. But I could remotely turn on my AI hydras via the cloud and then look at the tank through my webcam, because it's like no use looking at a webcam if it's 11 o'clock at night and all the lights are out.
Yeah.
And then I realized I can't do that anymore. I can't.
Huh.
At least I don't think I can, because now if I'm down here in my office and my tank's in the opposite corner of the house up a floor, I can't connect to the lights now through the cloud, Wi-Fi, all that fun stuff. It's the Bluetooth LE is too far away, right? So
that's interesting because I had such a hard time connecting via Wi-Fi each component. So I
That's that
actually
2.6 gigahertz crap, right?
yeah, we had an extender that we weren't using upstairs, so I plugged that in down here and set that all up, and that seems to solve the problem. So
Yeah, whenever I buy new Reef gear, I have the Eero um, mesh
The
Wi-Fi,
mesh system.
but they let you turn off the 5 gigahertz for 20 minutes. Like if you're trying to onboard some IoT device in your house that only uses like 2.6. Like most doorbell cams are only 2.6, so that works pretty good. And then once it connects once, then the Eero knows like, oh yeah, next time it tries to reconnect, it's like, oh, I know your MAC address. I know you're a
yeah,
2.6 kind of guy. Or is it 2.5? Have I been saying it
It's
wrong all
two
this time?
six. It's two
Okay.
six.
All right.
Yeah, because I used to keep an older phone because that was the only way I could connect to all these devices. And it was,
Yeah.
all the switch. I went through my house and started doing all the smart switches, which only work on 2.6, and whatever phone I had at the time could not do the 2.6. It was only was it 5.2? Whatever the faster one is, whatever the newer
Yeah.
one is, and so I had to bring out an older phone that still worked, and its sole purpose in life now was to just program each one of these devices. Now my phone will actually work on 2.6 also. So I can officially retire the old phone. But yeah, there's a Reef light that I used on a project, and the whole purpose for doing these lights on there was so that we could control them, or the client can control them remotely.
Yeah.
And it was in an event space, and the event timing changes, and so he didn't want to have to physically go on location to change the lighting schedule. He wanted to just be able to log into an app, change the schedule to match whatever event was in place, and be good. And the damn things are Bluetooth now, and he has no access to any of it. Now he's got to go there and log in with stupid Bluetooth to do it. And what was the point?
yeah,
Yeah.
So super
Last
frustrating.
summer, I was in Colorado about to go hang out with Jake, and my return pump died. And it was a Neptune core, the smaller core pump that you power with a 1-link cable. And the 1-link cable it's got like one of those little clippy connects that you use in computers and stuff. And it must have shorted or something, or whatever. I mean, I don't have a lot of salt creep, no humidity. And so my friend was kind enough to come over because I have a spare core pump, and he replumbed and put the new core pump in, and plugged the same 1-link cable in, and nothing was working because it was the cable. It wasn't the pump that was the problem.
huh?
And I was like, crap. I was like, can you tell me like how the corals and fish are doing, right? Because no return pump, no skimmer, nothing. And he's like, how do I turn on the lights? And I was like, I can't turn on the lights because they're not connected to a cloud. So that pissed me off. Yeah. I was like, come on, man. So I'm with you on that, Raj. It's like, especially when you're remotely managing systems and stuff. That's what's great about Apex is like I can turn shit on and off from anywhere.
Yeah.
Maybe I should just go to Reef bars, like the on off, old school LED strips. But I wish they still did that. And I think that's the problem is like, if there's no cloud sync anymore, you lose all of that. So
Yeah.
sort of talked about maintenance.
Yeah, I'll take it. What was funny is I think that we were going to talk about what you have to say in this episode, and we were going to do that at like 20 minutes in, and here we are at an hour and 20 minutes in. So.
Yeah.
You're like, you're in radio. How do you want to do this? Well, here we are at the end, and Mark, do you want to take the floor here and kind of tell us your little update?
So I told the guys I wanted to take a step back from the podcast a bit, and the reasons are, I guess, nothing bad, nothing dramatic or anything, right? But I just was like, man, I need this to just be a hobby again for a while and figure out, because I I think people noticed that I was burnt out a bit. You know, there was the dark mark or the gloomy mark, or why are you always so gloomy? And then I had friends that I know in the hobby text me like, "Are you okay, dude?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm fine." They're like, "I don't know, man. You've been kind of like shitting on the hobby and all this stuff." And I was like, "Oh, okay. So then I started like asking myself, what's going on? You know, like what?" And I'm like, well, if I'm being honest with myself, I haven't been as passionate with my aquariums lately, with the hobby as much lately. And then you feel like a bit of an imposter going on like a reef podcast, right? And being like, reefing, yeah. And it's, you know, sometimes you know what you're feeling, but you don't know why you're feeling it, right? And so that's where I was at, I guess a month or two ago, thinking like, well, like, what is it? Like, you know, is it the summertime and it's like, hey, I'm outside, you know, enjoying the sunshine, and we all neglect our reef tanks in the summer, and then winter comes and then you're back full force. Maybe it's that. When Jake passed, I feel like the hobby for me changed. I don't think the hobby changed. I just feel like it changed for me, you know, just because he was a really good friend, and you know, I do miss him, and I miss our conversations. I love talking to you guys. It has nothing to do with like comparing podcasts, right? It was just like the phone calls I have with him and stuff. And so maybe that had something to do with it, or maybe it's just like, you know, my first reef tank was in 1995, right? And you get to a point where it's like, there's a cyclical nature to the hobby. Things that are old are new again. Let's all talk about ozone. You know, and you're like, well, we've been there. We've done ozone, and yeah, it's good. You know, I'm just waiting for deep sand beds to make a comeback. You know, it's like in another 5 years or so. But you know, it's like you've kept a lot of corals. You've had your ups and downs. You have your challenges. So like, I'm like, is it that? Is it just like, you know, there's like nothing. So it's like exciting articles would come out, and I'm like, I should be excited about this. And I'm like, yeah, okay. You know, and so maybe it's work, right? I don't know. I've just been I keep joking like that movie, How Stella Got Her Groove Back. I'm like, I need to get my groove back, you know? And I've just been trying to figure out where that is with the hobby. Like, my tanks are running. I've got a clownfish, a Percula clown from the Solomon Islands that's older than my daughter, right? It's, I think it can legally buy porn now. I think it's 18. I'm not giving that. I can't get rid of that fish, right? I'm not tearing down any tanks. I'm going to keep reefing. But I felt like I'm not the guy that is buying new gear all the time or buying a bunch of corals. And I just have these tanks that are on autopilot and they're doing fine. So I felt like, you know, the podcast deserves more, you know, like somebody who's like, I hear Remy talk and he's so excited and he's so passionate. And I'm like, you know, you guys deserve somebody that's going to spend a week doing research for the podcast, right? Like, hey, we should talk about tridacnids and like what's like, you know, there's been new species in the last couple of decades identified in the Indian Ocean, and let's just talk about all tridacnids. And then, you know, like somebody that's going to compile a bunch of notes and do that. And I haven't had the motivation or energy to go there, right? So it was like I could go in two directions. Like I either have to, I felt like the podcast deserved either me going harder at it and like, you know, doing more research and like getting more, getting topics and developing them with Remy and Raj and, you know, being like that active participant in that world. Or if I'm just going to show up and half-ass it, like then I need to step aside, you know, and like let other people be in. And I'm happy to always jump on as a guest, right? Or like if I don't know if Raj gets COVID again, you know, which I hope you don't.
On me.
Yeah, you've had a bad run there, buddy.
Son of a bitch.
Would you be okay to come on as a guest once a week? I mean, is that
I felt like I wasn't doing you guys justice. And so I was like, yeah, I need to figure out what's going on. Maybe I need it to be a hobby again and go, do stuff and go set up a seagrass tank and do weird shit and then come back and have something to talk about. I don't know. So that's where I'm at. It's, it's something I did for free, for fun. And I was like, well, I love talking to you guys. That part's fun. But, there were even comments about us going down a rabbit hole about beer for like 30 minutes. And then the guy's like, hey, they start talking about reefing and, at 20 minutes and 9 seconds, guys. And it was like, is that maybe also related to me not being as passionate about the hobby? And I was like, oh yeah, let's talk about that instead. Like I'm just talking to two friends. And so, yeah. So I don't know. I'm still around. And like, if you guys ever need me to jump on, I'm happy to jump on. But I just felt, I felt like you guys deserved better. And I felt like I wasn't doing as much as I should. And I need to figure out what I want to do with the hobby, I guess. Is that a good answer? I don't know.
Yeah. Well, personally, I think that you've been doing great. Not that I'm trying to like keep you, but I don't want you to get down on yourself here. But yeah, like you said, the hobby is very cyclical. Your motivation for the hobby is very cyclical, and I think you're listening to yourself, and that's I think what a lot of people don't do these days is they just suppress whatever. So I got to give you kudos for that, and I think like you said, you're not necessarily leaving, but we can have you on as a guest every once in a while, and maybe next time we do talk to you, you do have a seagrass tank all set up or at least picked out, and things like that going on. So
well, it's like you asked me what's going on with your tank, and we hadn't talked in weeks, right? I'm like, no, not much, because like
it's been a month and a half.
Yeah, because it's once your tanks are on autopilot, it gets kind of boring unless you go just spend more money on coral and get rid of coral. And so I just felt like I'm like, well, like what am I like, why am I here? Like what am I contributing? Like, everything's fine.
And I've been there, or kind of was there, just being stuck and kind of not moving or doing anything, right? In a very similar type of place where I hated coming on and my update was, I haven't made any progress because I'm stuck. I just don't have that motivation to push past it for whatever. And I couldn't figure out why. But each week it was like the same thing that, okay, I should have made some progress on my tank, but I haven't. And I figured it out and kind of got over that hump, and things are dramatically different now. But nothing has really materially changed, right? It was just like a mental hurdle that I'd put in front of myself. So I totally get it. And then, like Remy was saying, I've been captain of taking all health or physical health, emotional health, and just kind of bottling it up in that jar and just push it down, close it shut, and pretend like it doesn't happen. Where this year I've kind of really had to grasp that, we need to take that time to work on ourselves. And if you're sick, you just need to take some time off and get better. I never really did that so much. I was always putting off things. Like I don't have time to go to the doctor this week because I've got all this stuff going on at work, and then the kids have sports, and then we've got all this other stuff, and it just keeps getting pushed and pushed and pushed. Whereas you come to that point where you realize that you can't do that. You have to stop everything that you're doing and just go. You go to the doctor because that's what you need to do, and you take care of things. Otherwise, it never improves, right? You never get out of it. You never get better, or you never find issues. And I'm going way off on a tangent now with health, but it kind of all plays together like that. So
no, and you hit it right on the head there, because it's not just this thing, right? The podcast and the hobby. Right now, I'm kind of in a transitionary state with my career. There's life plans that are trying to be sorted out, and it's like, those things are okay, but it's like there's that like, okay, what am I feeling, and then why am I feeling that way? And I'm like you, I'm like just forge ahead, right? And I'm trying to understand, like, well, like, why am I burnt out on the hobby? Like, there's still so much to learn. There's still so much to do, or try, or, so why have I honestly taken a little bit of a cynical slant on some things, in the hobby? And like, that's not good. Like, you shouldn't have cynicism in a hobby. It's like your hobby. It's like your escape from real cynicism, right? It's your joy. But I'm like, they should make better equipment and these corals names bug me. And, I mean, like I was definitely a get off my lawn reefer for a while there, but I'm also like, it's like, can I get that spark back? Can I get excited about a new fish or a new coral again? I want to, because I've been doing this since I was a kid, right? My first aquarium was like when I was tiny, right? So it's like I can't even fathom not. But I don't know. I just need to figure that out, I guess. And like I said, maybe it's like a little bit of everything, right? Like maybe it's the whole Jake thing still kind of lingering in the head. Maybe it's maybe it's summer. Maybe it's the fact that my life's really busy right now. Who knows? Like I might call you guys up in December and be like, I love it again. I don't know. So,
well, like you said, it's cyclical.
Host.
Yeah.
and you represent those feelings. Are representative of a lot of people out there that are feeling the exact same thing, because we all go through that.
Yeah.
And so it does resonate with people, and I guess it makes it more real, because, and we touched on this, I think, last time, because not everything is always perfect, right? Your reef tank isn't always stellar. It's not always Instagram worthy. Well, your feelings towards the hobby is the same way. They're never, I mean, I know a lot of golfers, and they're not always happy with their golf game, right? And they're not always happy with their equipment. They go through those cycles where they'll come and they'll spit these numbers. Oh, I shot a so-and-so number. I don't know what the hell that means, but I'm excited for them. I'm like, oh man, that's awesome. And they're like, no, that's a terrible number. Oh yeah, my bad. So, but it's the same in every hobby. We have our ebbs and flows, our ups and downs. It's kind of a normal part of it, and you have to work it out. And however that is, I don't know. Sometimes it's buying stuff, and sometimes it's just working through it.
Yeah, and it's I've done it before with the hobby where the tank's on autopilot, and I go get excited about another hobby for 6 months, and then I come back to it, and the tank's still gelling. And Jake always joked about, I would pull like a disappearing act. You're like, dude, I haven't heard from you in 3 months. Like, I didn't even know if you had a reef tank anymore. And so I think it's also just, like you said, it's natural, right? That sometimes you hate your golf game, right? You hate it. But it's hard to do that, right? It's hard to like be like, oh, I'm not really into reefing right now. But then every week go on a podcast and deliver something that people like are, like, that you want to do good at, right? You want like the people that are tuning in are not you. They're not like bored with their reef tank. They're like having the time of their life, and they're enjoying it, and they're excited. They're doing a water change, listening to you. And then it's like, it is weird to, be like doing that, but also at home be like, yeah, I should, so it's, so I'm trying to be honest with you guys about it, and just like, hey, and I didn't want to leave you guys in a bind. So I was like, let me know how I can make this easy on you guys and all of that. So,
well, you're a friend, so we want to make it, easy for you. Like whatever we can do to support our buddy that's going through the blues and the reefing
blues,
the reefing blues. Your white lights gave out, and you're running all actinics right now.
Maybe it's like how Norway, they like do full spectrum to cure depression. Maybe I need to set my reef lights less blue and make them like Iwasaki white, and also I'm like, I feel better.
I still have Iwasaki lamps and the old school ice cap ballast to drive it. So if you need me to bring that over, let me know.
Perfect. Yeah. I notice I'm turning really red, and that's because this room is like getting hotter and hotter. So that's what I was fidgeting with over there was a fan. So like when I had to run off, I'm like, I need air. Give him the air. So it's not because I'm getting emotional. So I'm just like dying of heat.
Dang it. Well, I sincerely appreciate you being honest with us and, not pushing your way through this, even though you don't really feel it right now. And
You
I
guys
hope,
are killing it. I mean,
dude, I will send you an email at least once a month asking if you want to be on. And I think from my perspective, it's, the podcast will never be what it was. And I think the one thing that was so unique about the podcast is it could just be you and Jake, because Jake he just knew everything. And we've got to dip into other guests. We've got to dip into experts in specific fields. Like, we'd love to have Taras on, talk about phytoplankton and, microorganisms and things like that. And, have, a Mike Sensky on talking about design and things like that. So,
one you guys did last week was stellar. The one with Reef Bum was stellar. The one with Sarah was stellar. And I think that's a good way to do it because it's like every episode is a unique perspective thrown into the mix, right? I mean, after a while, like we're all going to agree with each other or disagree with each other, but like having that new personality that's like, well, I was trying to come up with a creative example, but I can't. But that to me was really fun to listen to in that Reef therapy format, So
Yeah.
I think a lot of the commenters that have been negative, I mean, that make me sad because it's like they're comparing things and you just can't compare things. Like everything's going to always change happens, right? Change is inevitable. And, I don't know. I know how much effort you guys put into this. And so like, I get mad when I see comments like that because it's like, another YouTuber I listen to, he always, responds to his haters and he's like, the price is, the price sure is good though, right? As in it's free.
It's
Like
free,
you're not paying for this. You can turn it off if you don't like it. Like listen to it if you like it. And so I just the one you guys did with Dan was awesome, so I was joking like when I was going on vacation and you guys carried on, I'm like I was excited because I had a podcast to listen to, right? Because I hate
Yeah.
the sound of my own voice and I don't want to listen to my own opinions.
So one thing Windsor said that Jake would always complain because he's like, I never have a Reef podcast to listen to.
Yeah, it was true. Like there were podcasts out there, but they were, I guess, not our cup of tea. They weren't. I don't know. It's like, how to set up a quarantine tank. It's like, again, if you've been keeping a reef tank for a very long time, you're probably pretty particular about how you failed with quarantine tanks, 30 times and then figured out a way that it worked for you. And so you don't want to, it's good to get a unique perspective and maybe you get a new idea, but usually it's like, okay, you're going to need a heater. And so that was sort of the stuff we were running into where we were like, I don't want to listen to that. So,
Yeah.
no, I mean, like last week's podcast, in terms of getting inspired again and stuff, like you guys brought up some really interesting. The way you guys talked about algae turf scrubbers with him, and I forget the guy's name. I'm horrible with names. I don't remember Kevin. I don't remember people I work with their names, which is really I should not be in management, and I am. I'm like you, that guy, you. But yeah, it was a good conversation of like, I didn't think about that before, that kind of stuff. So, because I know we're at almost 2 hours, but I've been having that internal debate with my head about I grow macroalgae in my sump, and I know that it's not reducing nutrients enough to get rid of algae in the main tank, and I know that you can go to a low nutrient reef and build a box and exclude every herbivore from that patch of reef, and the algae will overgrow the corals. So I've always been like battling algae by cutting out nitrates and phosphates, in my opinion, is somewhat silly. I think it does help, right? You don't want too much fertilizer, but he was talking about how just for some reason growing it somewhere else makes it not grow in the tank. And I was like, yeah, that's how macroalgae refugiums work for me. If I grow a large ass wad of Cato, I am able to control the baddies in the tank somehow, and maybe it's competition terpenoids, who knows? So that's the kind of stuff where I'm like, oh, hey, that was a good podcast for me to listen to. So I think you guys are killing it. So yeah.
Definitely appreciate that, Mark. Like I said, I'll be hitting you up probably at least once a month or so to kind of fill in the gaps and just check in and see how you're doing and how the tanks are going. And then feel free to reach out to me if you've got something you're super pumped about, you want to talk about.
Some cloud I want to yell at.
Yeah. Maybe actually start putting makeup in that refrigerator. Who knows?
Oh man, you get super weird. It's like, well, we now know that it wasn't depression. Something else was going on with Mark.
I'm now seeing a therapist.
You still need to meet me out at that rooftop. It's that.
I
season
know,
now.
but you keep hitting me up like
Perfect.
when like last one was it my daughter's birthday? No. Oh no, the work dinner. I had a work dinner.
That
You
was the
reached
work
out to
thing.
me
Yeah,
again.
Yeah.
But I do want to join you sometime on a Friday.
Yeah, definitely do. It's a pretty awesome place.
Yeah.
It's just perfect. The venue is just perfect. So
Well, and the weather right now is
it'll be fun.
killer. I love the weather
That's
right now.
it.
Yeah.
It's crispy.
It's beer
nice.
drinking weather. Yep.
For sure.
It is.
All right. Well, clear as mud. Not totally leaving, but there for guest tendencies and guest appearances here and there. So I appreciate that. But yeah, if you've got any questions for Mark or for Raj or myself, you can go ahead and leave those in the comment section below. And if you're listening on the audio only version, you can find us on the Reef Builders socials. And we will see you in the next one. See you guys.
Cheers.
Bye.